So Bahco versus Silky. And I've been meaning to make this video for years. I've probably been talking about making this video for years now. And I haven't done it because I know that you guys are going to make me pick one, and I can't. I can't pick one over the other. This is the Bahco Laplander. This is the Big Boy 2000, Silky Big Boy 2000. And for me, in my general purpose, all around, I have to own both of these. I have a sheath for the Silky, and there are times where I will put the Silky on my belt and this in my back pocket, and I'll have both of them. And so let's talk about the pros and cons of each one and kind of get an idea of why exactly I need both. I've been using both of these now for years. I've been using the Bahco for a lot longer because I've owned it for a lot longer. And the Bahco is really good at cutting branches and smaller diameter things. It's good at cutting big things too, but it takes a lot more effort than the Silky does. But you can get a lot of work done with this little saw. I also like it for making notches and different things in wood. So if you're bush crafting or wood crafting, you can craft things with this a lot easier than you can with the Silky because of the fine tooth pattern. And I know that you can get fine tooth and smaller Silkies, but for the money, you're simply just paying for the name. The only reason I would buy a smaller Silky is just so that everybody can tell me how cool my Silky saws are. The Bahco Laplander is more than capable. It's going to get the job done, and it's a lot more affordable, and so I like the Bahco Laplander. The main things that I do with a saw is cutting sticks and stuff and just kind of crafting, making pot hangers and different things. But it's owning a home, a lot of bigger branches and bigger things, and this was all I owned for a really long time. I've lived in this house now for 5 years, and this is all I had. After storms, after everything, this is what I used. If there was a part of a branch hanging down or a huge tree limb, like a large diameter tree limb, this is what I would use to take care of that situation. I would use this on much bigger, heavier items, like if the trees were broken, if the larger pieces were down, this would take forever. I can do it in 30 seconds to a minute with this. Recently we had a tree go down, and it was, I think he said it was either 60 or 80 feet, I don't remember, so we'll go 60-foot tree. There's branches everywhere, and I started off just with these, and I could have done it. I could have processed that whole tree down with just these two tools, but it would have taken me forever. So I recently bought a chainsaw, and so I bought an electric chainsaw. You'll see that here. So you'll see that there's a big pile, another huge pile. I have 3 huge piles of just branches and smaller branches, and then the main tree itself I have stacked up, and I'll show pictures of all that. And I could have done all of that work with these two right here. The smaller stuff is a lot harder to do with the Silky because of the larger teeth. It's harder to grip onto it. It goes in between the teeth instead of cutting into it. The other thing that I want to talk about is the Silky. A lot of people talk about how the Silky, it cuts on the pull instead of the push. And they always remind you, remember that they cut on the pull and not the push. And I never understood why it mattered, because American saws cut on the push and not on the pull. The Bahco cuts on both the push and the pull. And honestly, the American styles that cut on the push, you push down with force on the push, and then you let up on the pull. And that motion, you lose a lot of your strength as you go out. And so it's harder. It's nicer to have somebody on the other end. It's nicer having 2 people on those saws, so one's pulling and the other one's pulling, right? So you put the person on the handle, doesn't have to pull as hard, and then the person on the end of the blade really has to pull to get through that wood. Where this, it'd be a waste of time and energy to have somebody on the other side, because it starts off weak and it gets stronger as you're pulling, and so then as you're pushing light, pulling hard, it's easier to pull than it is to push, in my opinion anyway. And so I'm able to do a lot of work with this. I've noticed using a standard handsaw that I can do more work with this and I don't get as tired as fast, and my forearm doesn't get sore as fast using this as a traditional handsaw. And so that's why I use this. I do have a traditional handsaw, but I like this one better because, again, I can work for a lot longer without getting fatigued, and my arm doesn't get as sore from using the Silky than the American handsaw. But they are both required for what I do. When I'm taking those branches down, when I'm taking the bigger, when I'm getting firewood, I grab the Silky. The Silky has to come with me so that I can get the bigger logs and the dimensional things. If I'm crafting and making things, I have to have the Bahco. The Silky just isn't as nice. It doesn't cut as clean as the Bahco, and it doesn't start as easily as the Bahco. And so I really like the Bahco Laplander. If you're going to be using it for crafting, if you're going to be using it for making things, if your main purpose is just to make notches and make things and you're using your axe to cut everything down, I recommend the Bahco. If you don't carry an axe like I do, the Silky is going to do a lot of that work for you. It's going to cut down the trees, it's going to cut down things, it's going to help you make dimensional lumber for different things. And so for me, I have to have both. I'm not going to pick one over the other. That's why I put this off, because I didn't want to pick one, and I'm not going to pick one. I need both. And now that I have my chainsaw, that's going to be added to the mix. Even with the chainsaw, I bought an electric because they're quieter and I don't have to worry about fuel. I don't have a lot of trees on my property. It's not a real problem to use handsaws. And even though I bought that chainsaw, I still use the Silky and the Bahco. I needed it for that job. I needed it to take that tree down and process that tree, because these would have taken forever. So I'm glad that I bought the saw for that project, or the chainsaw. But every time I go out there and I have to trim branches or have to do something, I'm grabbing these. I'm not grabbing the chainsaw. So with that being said, in that comment section, I want to know two things. One, do you want me to review my chainsaw? And two, what would you pick, or what do you own? Do you have both? Do you think that the Silky, the smaller Silkies, are better than the Bahco? Let me know in that comment section, and I can't wait to see you on my next video.